Good morning, children. An old captain is very happy because this is the closest thing captain has to taking a brand new baby home. And that is when I get my new physical copy, not the digital copy, not when I publish it, but when the new physical copy comes in. This is obviously it's not a book, it's an essay. Some of you have already bought, a lot of you have already bought it. But it came in the mail. I just wanted to show it to you guys, talk about a little bit for those of you that are not used to this. The short version is this. I'm going to read the intro or the background so we get a little bit more of a thorough, and then you can choose whether you want to buy it or not. All down below, paperback, Kindle, and audio. But the short version is this: Allah enjoyed the decline. You cannot let the fact, I'm not being pejorative, I'm being descriptive, that the parasites of society are always going to be trying to live off of you. I know it's very angering when society votes to enslave the producers to support the parasites. I get that. For those of you who want to make your one life count and you want to pursue excellence while everybody else is like, oh, I'm oppressed. Oh, give me more of your money. Oh, and it's very, very anti-American, anti-excellence when the mob or the masses decide to vote, and Peter and Paul decide to enslave Pete. But at the same time, you got this one life. And what I have noticed, maybe a lot of you have noticed as well, is have you ever seen any feminists smiling? Have you seen any leftists smiling? Angering and upsetting as the rioters and the protests may have made you. What kind of life do they go back home to? And I know this sounds like a cheap shot, but it really isn't. How important is physical beauty to you? How important is love and lust to the individual, male or female? Yet at the same time, you have leftists pretty much advocating physical revulsion. I mean, I'm going to basically bodily mutilation. Oh, big is beautiful. That's the least of it. Now you're dyeing your hair all kind of crazy colors and piercing your face and tattooing up your face. All to gain some kind of value or purpose in life, because they have no value and purpose in life. But hey, I'm going to tattoo some Chinese proverbs. That makes me deep, man. And so agitating and angering as it is that these effective slave masters have voted to enslave you, you got to think, you got to look at their lives. How happy out? Let's say Biden-Harris wins. Okay, and taxes go up, and the continuation of the productive people are the very, very, very bad people. Have you ever considered the lives of leftists? I'm not talking the Nancy Pelosi's or the other types that actually, got lucky. They won the lottery, the leftist lottery, where they actually did make it into a nonprofit or a good government position and they get the money. But for every Betsy Hodges or an Ilhan Omar or whatever, there are thousands, probably tens of thousands of unpaid leftist volunteers, activists, the sorts of that, who maybe they're lucky if Soros or government grant comes in, they make their $10 an hour to go hold a sign. And so what I wanted to do was present a thought, an idea, a vaccine, if you will, that will make you feel a lot better. And make you view life in a different lens. You're like, oh, wow, this is some really great news. And yeah, thank God I'm not a leftist. Okay, fine. I got to pay 50% of my taxes out. But I mean, you could give 50% of the wealth to the left. They'll still squander it. You see that with NBA players. They make millions and then 60% of them go bankrupt. I don't know how you squander 5 million, 10 million, whatever it is, but they do. And you could give it, but they'll waste it. You could give them UBI, they'll waste it. So let me just read the background here. And if you would kindly share this with anyone, especially coming up with the election, who's angry. I'm going to send this to a couple old guys I know who are like, they're realizing now it's the 9th inning. They're like, hey, wait a second. I'm like, well, don't get too angry. I intended Sanity is the Future of Wealth to be the single best post I had ever written, not so much because of the quality of the writing, but because of the ideas it introduced. It explained how we will, and in some instances already have, achieved a post-scarcity world, how that effective post-scarcity world has affected our economic values and thus our happiness. But above all else, that in spite of having effectively unlimited resources and all of our earthly desires satisfied, human pettiness, jealousy, envy, and greed springs eternal, and thus damns most people to live a life of misery, anger, hatred, and envy. But the real price humanity pays for its unlimited wealth is its sanity, because with all of our real problems gone and successfully smaller ones being resolved every day, Humankind focuses on increasingly pettier and pettier things that ultimately do not matter in life. And thus, as small minds obsess over smaller things, said minds no longer focus on what matters most in life, becoming untethered from reality and therefore being driven insane. That's probably the most important paragraph I wrote. This makes the most precious commodity on our world today not money or wealth or materialism, but rather simple sanity. Simple sanity that can only come from common sense, intellectual honesty, critical thinking, frugality, and the maturity to not succumb to something as petty as jealousy. But given how society brainwashes people to focus on what worthless trinkets rich people have that they don't, or how nobody points out this amazing world of leisure we live in, where basically nearly all of our needs can be taken care of within a 40-hour work week, assuming you don't screw it up with kids you can't afford or a worthless degree you can't pay back. It is no shock the small minds of society are duped into obsessing over what worthless material items they don't have. So much so that their anger and jealousy consumes them, thus driving them insane and thus wasting, nay, torturing their one and only preciously short life on this planet. Alas, it was my intention to point out to larger minds that happiness and therefore true wealth would no longer be determined by how much money you had, but rather how sane you were, as sanity would be a rare and fleeting commodity in a world of petty, spoiled little minds. But ironically, speaking of small minds, when I posted it for free on my blog, this was originally free, by the way. You don't have to pay for it. When I posted it for free on my blog, it received little, if any, traction. It was one of my least read serious pieces. Very few people commented on it. And despite my best efforts to publicize it and get into the marketplace of ideas, I failed. This great economic and political, philosophical epiphany that arguably held the secret to happiness for all of humanity went over like a fart in church. And so, being the good economist I am, I did the only thing I could. I took it down, and now I'm making people pay for it, as people do not value anything unless they suffer a price. Dang, I'm a good economist. I don't even have a doctorate. By the way, kids, if you want to become an economist, you don't need a doctorate. You just go get a real job and then be a philosopher with numbers. Still, in spite of having to pay for it, I hope you do appreciate this essay. All hubris and arrogance set aside, I truly do believe that sanity will increasingly be the main form of wealth in the foreseeable future, and therefore the main source of happiness, or at least contentment. I would also say physical beauty, but that's listed in here. You can go over that later. And for what token price you paid for this essay, I hope understanding this philosophy and implementing it in your life improves and enriches your life to the maximum extent possible. Sincerely, Aaron Clare. That's me. So the link is down below. It's a short read. It's only, you take out the intro I just read there. Oh, and I prostitute my stuff in the back. That's about 4 or 5 pages. It's about 45 pages. And it's a smaller book, so I won't tell you. But please get this. If you're ever angry watching the news, you're like, I gotta get this, and give this to your parents. I know a lot of old boomers like, the world's going to hell. Oh, back in the day, Jim Morrison used to say, come on, baby, light my fire. And then he died on a toilet like all of our heroes did. So while they're finally like, wait a minute, there's something wrong with the country. It's like, really? You didn't notice that? Oh, you were high on pot in the 70s. Okay. Get it for them. Make them happy. Make yourself happy. And there you go. Do we have any super? Judd Grover, $2. I enjoyed having leftists arrested last night. Well, you gotta give a little bit more detail about that there, Judd. All right, scrolling through anything I'm working at. Yeah, by the way, A-Hole Consulting is back. Hey, our good buddy Atham is in the house. All right. See you guys later. Toodles.